The biggest fights, the most controversial stories, the moments that made you laugh.
I just want to be clear, I don't put out on the first day.
And even some that made you cry.
And it's like a tornado came through.
We've got you covered like no other. This is the best of Inside MMA 2012.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kenny Rice, along with the legend that is Boss Rutan, and welcome to this special edition of Inside MMA. And you notice it is Red Shirt Day.
Red Shirt Day.
How about that?
Look at the tie here, look.
There's something about that tie, though, that sums it up. Oh, gee, who's the black sheep of that family, boss?
Ooh, I wonder.
I wonder.
Probably my mother gave me this tie.
I tell you, you know what? It was a good year to be a black sheep if you're out there in the fighting world.
Oh, yeah.
Because talk wasn't cheap. Trash talking got some championship fights set up down the road. There was an incredible amount of injuries, though, more than I can remember, among big-name fighters. It was significant in that there was history being made. The UFC, for the first time, had to cancel an event. And Strikeforce is teetering as we go into 2013.
Wow. A lot of stuff happened.
It was not a smooth ride, was it?
It was not a smooth ride, you know, but hey, it's mixed martial arts, you know, comes from all angles. It's kind of cool. It's not that bad, you know. Hit a curveball, straight ball, low ball, whatever they call it. I think it's cool.
It was up, it was down. Have some Dramamine and take a look back at 2012. Bad news for former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion Rafael Feijão Cavalcanti. He is the latest to test positive for steroids. Both Stephan Bonner and Dave Herman failed drug test after UFC 153. It has been another tough week for Mo Lawal. The self-proclaimed king was dethroned for testing positive for steroids.
I don't think it's as big of an issue as everybody's making it out to be.
And Alistair Overeem has been the big man in the big news. He was taking an anti-inflammatory drug which contained testosterone.
The title fight is my dream. That's my ultimate goal. And this was going to be the crown of my career.
The statute is very strict. You can't have this in your system, and unfortunately he did.
Chris Cyborg Santos has dominated women's fighting, but now she has been suspended a year by the California State Athletic Commission after she tested positive for an anabolic steroid.
She's going to be stripped of her belt and her title.
Nobody's perfect, man. This is the fight business.
So you've never taken any kind of steroids in your career?
No.
The Nevada State Athletic Commission has suspended Nick Diaz for marijuana use.
It's illegal. I don't care if Dr. Reefer gave you a prescription for it.
According to statements issued by the UFC, both men admitted to taking banned substances. Well, okay. Bad news for UFC bantamweight champion Dominic Cruz. He has torn his anterior cruciate ligament. Vitor Belfort broke his hand. Bang, bang. Quentin Jackson pulled out of his fight because of an elbow injury. Then the headliner, Jose Aldo, he had some pain and swelling in his foot, so he had to pull out of his title fight. Everybody was falling by the wayside. Luke Rockhold got injured. Sarah McMahon got injured. And the star of the show, Daniel Cormier, was without an opponent.
Hoping for the best, but you know the writing was on the wall. The show's been canceled.
You know, it sucks.
What fight? The first ever UFC cancellation. Are you surprised that they couldn't find an opponent that Jones was going to fight and this whole card had to be canceled?
They did find an opponent, one that he didn't want to fight.
Good for you, John Jones. You're rich and you got some money. You don't need to take this fight. But there's a bunch of guys on the undercard that this is how they feed their family.
Is John Jones a villain for this cancellation?
This is one of those selfish, disgusting decisions. I don't think that this is a decision that's going to make John Jones popular with other fighters.
Well, as it stands now, John Jones is still the champ. He is still quite popular. Everybody hugged and made up, or at least made up. And he gets ready to defend his belt after he is one of the coaches on The Ultimate Fighter.
That's what happens. Just keep winning, and then everything will be forgotten. You know, beat people up. You know, that's the great thing in this business. You can actually do that and get paid for it. Oh, my God, that's how they offered me this job. You know, I say, so I can beat somebody up, and they give you money for it. Yeah. Sign me up. That's awesome.
Sign him up, indeed, and everybody's thankful that they did.
Oh, I'm very happy as well. You know, yeah,
but
I'm in America.
The injuries, the drug testing, the failed drug test, that is something that's hanging over the sport right now. Going into the new year and down the road. How many more guys can get suspended or be suspected of drug use? And Dana had one of the best lines of the year, by the way, about the Dr. Reefer.
Yeah, that was a good one, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, this and that's what That particular one, I don't actually get. I go like, okay, I can understand, okay, it's illegal, you can't do it, but $35,000, I believe that his fine was. I thought, you know, I think a person that shoots up should pay way more than somebody who smokes. It's not actually an advantage for you, right? And he used it for his glaucoma.
Right. Yeah, right. Well, my big toe was hurting earlier today, and I took an aspirin. Anyway, this year, the UFC did make an announcement of 2 additional new weight classes for the first time since the WEC was absorbed in 2010. Coming up, a new weight class. It is, of course, the UFC flyweight tournament.
To become especially the first flyweight champion.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Whoever wins this has a good chance to shoot a superstar. I'm kind of like a John Jones type of figure. And no one even likes him.
I've been waiting for a while for the title fight, so it's finally over. Now I can't wait to make history.
Now I'll go back to your corner.
I'm very happy and very ecstatic. And you know, tonight, you know, I made history. And I was happy to do it with Joseph Benavidez, one of the best fighters in the world.
Ronda Rousey comes in trying to take the belt away from Miesha Tate. You get the main event.
It's a huge opportunity, and you know, if the women can deliver, I think it could say big things for our future, not only in Strikeforce, but hopefully eventually in the UFC.
Of course, there's been speculation that Rousey would become the first woman fighting in the UFC.
There was one point where you said you didn't think females would ever fight in the octagon. What made you change your mind?
Ronda Rousey.
I feel like I'm finally accomplished what I set out to as a kid.
From the outside, she's this beautiful girl who won a bronze medal in the Olympics and everything else.
Hi.
But when you talk to Ronda Rousey, she's a Diaz brother inside.
That girl's been cheating for her entire career.
She's nasty. She's mean.
The whole time that she's held that belt, I think it's just a fraud.
Wow. Well said.
When would you like to see her make her octagon debut?
Next Saturday.
It took someone of the flamboyance and talent of Ronda Rousey to break the glass ceiling. A woman's division in the UFC. She will fight Liz Carmouche. At first, that seemed interesting because you think Chris Cyborg's the one everybody wants to see.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's fighting Carmouche probably shows as well, would you think, that the women's division is going to be around for a while. That's not going to be her only fight in the UFC, in other words.
No, we have Invicta FC, you know, and Invicta is a big show, and they have high numbers on the internet. I mean, Shannon Knapp's doing a really good job there, and Liz Carmouche was fighting for that organization. And now they realize people are interested in women fights, and especially Ronda Rousey comes along. And, of course, the main one will be always Cyborg.
That's the one down the road. And then there's Sarah McMahon in there, and also an Olympian.
Of course.
Who's going to be a draw, too, that will probably be in the UFC, and they'll get everything worked out and have a roster.
Yeah. We both thought, you know, that would be the first maybe UFC event, because they're both are from the Olympics. They both were in the Olympics, and, you know, that would have been great. Olympian versus Olympian. That would have been a great fight. But, hey, Liz Carmouche, forced to be reckoned with.
All right, the flyweights and the women's division. Very positive steps both ways, I think.
Very, very good. The only thing, I want to see instant replay. I asked this 3 years ago already. Every year I'm asking, please, this year, instant replay.
Okay. Set your DVR. There's still more to come. Then you can replay us back over and over in the new year.
Michael Schiavello and Pat Miletich break down the past year of Access TV fights and a look back at Nick Newell's remarkable rise to the top of the XFC. When the best of Inside MMA 2012 returns.
What's up, guys? This is UFC Light Heavyweight Champion John Bones Jones. You guys are watching Inside MMA. I hope you all have an awesome holiday.
This is Scrape from Tap Out. Boss, Kenny. I know you guys are in there. Boss is doing this thing, pulling the camera. Have a happy holidays from Tap Out. We love you guys.
Thank you, all of our friends out there, for all the support over the years. It's been a great run, and we still keep going strong now as we take a look back at another year. Boy, they fly by, don't they? Michael Schiavello and Pat Miletich were there to call the action this year for Access TV fights. Michael and Pat join us now to take a look back at the highlights of the year.
Thanks, Kenny and Bas. Well, what a great year it's been here on Access TV. All the fantastic fights we've covered all over North America. And Pat, first of all, John Prisco at the XFC gave us so many memories, none more so than the true Cinderella story, Nick Newell, who won the 155-pound title in Nashville.
Yeah, and for any fighter to go on the run that he went on and win a title,
is an accomplishment. But Nick Newell having the congenital amputation, you know, he's tired of us talking about it, but it was impressive.
You know who may be the man to watch in 2013, though, at XFC? The man they call Hot Sauce Scott Holtzman. For mine, the real up-and-comer to keep an eye on next year in XFC.
Yeah, and he's, you know, he's a true gentleman, but he's a powerful fighter, very strong kid, comes in shape. He does what every fighter should do for every fight that they're in. I mean, he really comes prepared.
Legacy Fighting Championships out of Texas. Mick Maynard and all the crew gave us so many highlights throughout 2012. First of all, Robert Drysdale, the Jiu-Jitsu multiple world champion, remaining undefeated. Derek Lewis versus Jared Rosholt, though, for mine was really their Cinderella story out of Legacy, because Lewis came into that heavyweight title fight, Pat, as a huge underdog. His mentor, his inspiration, his grandfather, on his deathbed a week away from dying. He was being owned on the ground by Rosholt, got one chance at a stand-up. He took that chance and he knocked out Rosholt, a moment I will never forget.
Yeah, people going through tough times in life sometimes can be very dangerous, a la Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson. Lewis capitalized and KO'd a very legit fighter and great wrestler.
It wasn't the best KO of the year, though, Pat. That belonged to Thomas de Almeida, a Muay Thai stylist from Brazil, who on a Legacy card knocked out Cody Williams with the elbow from hell.
Yeah, and Cody Williams is a really tough kid. We've enjoyed watching him fight. But I tell you what, Almeida stuck him to the canvas with that elbow, like sticking a squirrel or a rabbit with a spear to the canvas. It was sick. Dropped him straight down into the canvas.
Speak of impressive victories, a man who really stood up north of the border, Moikai Marimo at MFC, courtesy of Mark Pavlich and all the crew. Moikai had two epic fights against Adam Lin, the second one for the title, and he left no doubts in the mind after the controversy that surrounded their first fight.
Controversy indeed, because that first fight we expressed our concern and our displeasure on air with that athletic commission and how it was judged. But that second fight, Marimo put it on him, and it was one of the most vicious knockouts I'd seen, certainly in 2012 and before.
You speak of vicious fighters, Pat. There's another one on the MFC roster there. His name is Elvis Mutapcic. He is now the middleweight champion of MFC after defeating Joseph Henley, and this man is just a bone cruncher to watch in 2013.
Yeah, Mutapcic is definitely an up-and-coming star. Did a great job against Henley, destroyed Henley's knee with one kick. Don't get kicked by Elvis Mutapcic.
And folks, we were so happy in 2012 to sign the Resurrection Fighting Alliance and the Score Fighting Series. RFA giving us such great fighters as Chidi Njokwani, Sergio Pettis and James Krause. And up north at the Score Fighting Series, the like of Chris Horodeski and, of course, Jordan Meehan, who's an absolute beast. There is going to be a lot more to come in 2013. And Kenny and Bas, you can bet that Pat and I are going to enjoy calling all the action right here on Access TV. To all of our fans, we want to say thank you for watching. A Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and for the last time in 2012, back to you, Kenny and Bas.
Thank you, Michael and Pat.
Thank you.
We look forward to 2013.
Yes.
I thought Marimo was a huge story in MFC.
I think so, too.
I like to watch him fight.
Look, I wrote it down.
Yeah.
I said, don't forget him, because I like strikers who start focusing on submissions as well. But right now, he doesn't need it because he's just knocking people out left and right.
Of course, one of the big stories here, and it played out all across the country and actually crossed over into some other sports pages, other sports news outside the world of MMA, and for various reasons. Some looked at him as a novelty, let's face it, to start with, as he would admit himself. But XFC lightweight champ Nick Newell did make a lot of news. We take a look back at his inspiring story.
Notorious Nick Newell has become a true media sensation.
Do you ever wonder what's going to happen when you have to go to that second round? Someday it happens to everybody.
I fight with nothing to lose, and I think that's why I finish.
And here's what Newell does best, and Coggan's out of trouble. Can Newell survive these final seconds? Yes, and Coggan spins around, takes the back. Oh, Coggan's quickly. Can he find it now? Newell fighting. Unbelievable. Nick Newell survives.
I'm a fighter. I didn't come here to run from anyone. I came here to fight tough guys. And I think I proved that I can hang with them tonight.
Here he comes again. Newell saying he wants to be more technical in his striking tonight. Newell, he tagged him sweetly. Here comes Newell! Make me some way! One of the most inspirational fighters in the world today. Big kibosh, the high knee, look at it here. Off the left leg.
A lot of people said I couldn't strike. Well, guess what? Welcome. Here's Nick Newell, the striker. Hey, I'll fight anyone. It doesn't matter who it is.
Nick Newell has been one of the big stories this year, creating quite a stir.
It will definitely be my toughest fight to date, but I plan on coming home with that win on December 7th.
It is the moment we have all been waiting for. Nick Newell versus Eric Reynolds for the title. The greatest Cinderella story in mixed martial arts. Oh, suplex! Now it's a back suplex there from Nick Newell and takes the back of Eric Reynolds. Reynolds in trouble. Reynolds taps out. It's good night, Irene! The fairy tale comes true!
And the new XFC lightweight champion of the world, Notorious Nick Newell!
So he's been a star on Access TV. We look forward to seeing more of him in 2013. One of the questions asked was how would he do as a striker? Well, obviously he showed he does have striking ability. Would he be able to win a belt? Yes, he did.
And he did, yeah. And also before that, the knockout was really nice. But his last fight for the title, he came out with strikes to the head, and there were really well-placed strikes and technically good kicks. So, man, we're going to see a lot from him. And on close distance, you know, he's got the short range, and then long range he's got with the other arm, who's of course much stronger also because he focuses on that. All together, put that package together. You know, he makes it work for him. But you know, don't go like people say, oh, you know, it could be an advantage. It is always a disadvantage. Trust me on this one. I mean, it's very hard for him, you know, when the kick comes from the side, you don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be a high kick or a middle kick, you know, and he has to make that split-second decision with the arm to defend. Of course, he's got his other arm, but sometimes that other arm is busy as well. So please don't go there. Some people do, but I wouldn't do that.
No, that was nuts, Steve, and we try to go there, I think, for anybody that does that. Yep. I think of Jim Abbott. That's one of his inspirations. We were all talking before the show. We've talked a lot about Nick Newell. Who else do you think about like that had what some would call a handicap they had to overcome? It was the pitcher, Jim Abbott, who went on to have a successful major league career, stuck around. All right, stick around. There will be more coming up. Ron Kruk will join us as we continue this look back at 2012.
The UFC ends the year with a showdown in Vegas, and Ron Kruk hits the jackpot when the best of Inside MMA 2012 returns.
Somebody with a smart mouth parks up next to me, maybe it'll be tonight.
Words can't explain how pissed I am. It feels like you get your heart ripped out of you. It makes me mad that GSP even considers something like that.
There was some anger in the year 2012. Welcome back in. Kenny Rice, Boss Rootin' pulling you in. We're joined by our friend, the intrepid reporter for Inside MMA, Ron Kruk.
Happy New Year, guys. I'm sorry I did not get the memo on the red shirts.
Red shirts? Red shirts, you should know that.
Next year.
Red shirt, next year. We build up to New Year's Eve, it's Red Shirt Day.
Unbelievable.
How about that?
See, I'm in the field too much.
It's our holidays leftovers, by the way. You're out in the field. You see people talking. Sometimes they have something to talk about.
Yep.
Sometimes. You know, Johnny Hendricks, by the way, you saw one of the clips from him. He had something to talk about. There's a guy that probably should get the next title shot. I think most people could make an argument for him. But he didn't get it, so he's angry. But one of the biggest stories of the year, not really one of the best stories, but it was one of the biggest, trash talking everywhere. It's actually become kind of a skill for some fighters. Inside MMA takes a look at it all. In the meantime, we will offer you such quality things as one opponent saying something about another opponent.
Man, he's an actor, subpar actor.
It isn't often that you go into a fight with so much trash talk.
He should be on the B team, not the A team.
It's funny that he say, I should move down to the strike force to fight him. From where I'm sitting, that's a step down.
I don't really listen to much of anything Rhonda says.
She still kind of talked herself into this title fight.
In response to Misha's thing that she supposedly wrote about how I'm not a real fighter and I've never been tested.
Half the time I really honestly think it just makes her sound like an idiot.
Hey, Rhonda maybe has been watching some of the guys. They've talked their way into a few fights.
What Mo's trying to do right now.
Chael Sonnen will challenge UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones for the title. So how did Sonnen pass up all those other contenders?
They want you to be a presence in the media.
So what? I talked my way into it. I wanted it and I got it.
And Chael Sonnen is that guy.
Obviously, Chael wants this fight. The fans wanted this fight. It made sense. These guys will both coach The Ultimate Fighter. They'll fight when the season's over.
This decision had several light heavyweights blowing up their Twitter accounts, including Dan Henderson, who wondered if he should learn how to trash talk better.
Dan, you open that school, I'd like to join.
I need to enroll in Dan Henderson's school whenever he gets that up and running. That's 2 students now he has.
What else are you supposed to say? you got to sell some tickets. Well, it comes down to selling tickets, but are you fans the ones that really want to see these fights? Or does guys talk themselves into it and then the management has to say, of course, that's what the fans wanted to see? Because they've already made the decision, right or wrong, deserving or not, that he's going to be in the title fight.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that whole segment just got me fired up. I'm telling you, the king of the trash talkers, you. You read a prompter like a girl.
Yeah.
You're so bald, I can see what you're thinking. Oh, Chael Sonnen's got nothing on Kruk.
That's
He forgets
right.
who's the fighter
Kruk
here.
you up.
Hey, keep talking like that. You'll probably get a UFC fight. Talent doesn't matter.
See, that's the thing, as a reporter, I love it when someone will give you a good soundbite, trash talk their opponent, and call someone out. But when a guy who's 0-1 in the division gets a title shot, yes, I'm referring to Chael Sonnen against John Jones, that's a problem.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense, but I'm going to say this. Sonnen said things about me. He said things about our show. We've invited him to come on. He won't come on. That's fine. Someday I hope you do come on, Chael. I'll give you credit. You did say I talked my way into the fight. That's exactly what you did. That is to your credit. Nobody can deny that.
Yep.
The records would say somebody else should have had that shot. Then we could get back to the records, could say Johnny Hendricks should have had that shot at George St. Pierre instead of Nick Diaz. But Diaz puts up a good talk at times as well. So, whatever happens like this, in the big picture, I don't know. The fans will still get to see a fight.
Well, you see it also in bullying in school, with the kids now.
Sadly,
nowadays, it's way worse because it's all social media and texting and tweeting and Facebooking. Whatever they do, everything is way worse. And they just took a look at those kids doing it. And they go, hey, wait a minute. It works. You can really destroy somebody's life. Maybe I can make some stuff up and just get some fights. Let's try it out. And voila, it works.
The bottom line, though, here is it's the UFC and Dana White that are making these fights official. And they're on a slippery slope here because when you do that and you give a trash talker that title shot, it really cheapens that belt. And what does that say to all the guys who are beating legitimate contenders? Sorry. You're not getting the title shot. This guy sells pay-per-views.
That's right.
It all started with Muhammad Ali, who was a very clever guy, by the way, and he backed it up. That was the difference. Those that have said something about Ronda Rousey, she's backed it up. There are several people that are out there talking things, but they're backing up the talk. That is the real difference. What I'd eventually like to see one day is to have a rating system within the UFC where we could actually get an idea, and there would be debate on that as well, but you'd have an idea who is number 2, 3, 4, 5 on down on the pecking order to see if this fight matters.
Well, if he beats so-and-so, so-and-so's going to get the title fight. And that's the way it should be.
But until then, I would just have to say, compliments to all of you who've talked your way into fights. Whether you deserve it or not, you're going to get a nice payday out of it. And you're taking advantage of the American system. Sell the sizzle, not always the steak.
There you
go.
But
there was some fighting going on recently.
True. Well, nobody talked his way into a title fight at UFC 155 this past weekend in Las Vegas. The challenger, Cain Velasquez, earned his rematch with UFC heavyweight champion Junior Dos Santos. This was one of the most anticipated fights of 2012.
And as usual, the stars were out in full force for the promotion's end-of-the-year show. 13 months after Junior Dos Santos needed only 64 seconds to steal Cain Velasquez's heavyweight belt, Velasquez avenged the loss and took out a year's worth of frustration on the former champ. In his face from the opening bell, Velasquez took Dos Santos down early and often, something no one else had been able to accomplish. However, the former ASU wrestler was just as dominant standing up, rocking JDS with massive strikes and delivering constant punishment. Cain Velasquez regained the UFC heavyweight title and snapped JDS's 10-fight win streak.
It's always been in the back of my mind since the whole year, you know what I mean? Knowing what I could do, and I just need to go out there and prove it. My style of fighting, I love ending the fights and TKOs and everything else. To do more of a wrestling style fight, to be heavy on him the whole time, to have it tire him out, that's what we wanted.
Junior Dos Santos, in his UFC career, had spent 13 seconds on the ground. That was it. And then tonight, he got beat up. Things happened to him that have never happened to him before, and the guy's just an absolute warrior. I don't know who here really saw Junior Dos Santos after that fight. He looked terrible.
In an epic battle, lightweights Jim Miller and Joe Lozon earned Fight of the Night honors and possibly the Fight of the Year award. Miller destroyed Lauzon with vicious elbows, opening a huge gash on his forehead that ultimately required 40 stitches. Despite being a bloody mess, Lauzon never quit, but it was Miller who earned the unanimous decision victory.
I knew that I was going to have to throw everything I had at him, and that's what I pretty much did. But yeah, I couldn't put him away, and you know, I don't get super excited about winning decisions. That was a crazy fight. It was a fun fight. It was a fun fight to be in.
So it was the first time I'd actually been cut and had it draining in my eyes so bad. You know, like I could just feel like warmness just spewing all over my face. I could see, but it was definitely distracting. You know, the entire time I'm just thinking about it, and you know, and the elbows kept coming. I really like Jim. You know, before the fight, after the fight, during the fight. You know, so if I get to lose to someone, you know, I'm glad it's a good guy like Jim.
At one point, he had like that arm choke on him, and it was literally squirting out of his head. Ari Emanuel, the agent, the real Ari from Entourage, you got him good.
Good.
You got him good.
A pair of middleweight contenders in Tim Boesch and Alan Belcher were both eliminated from title contention. Suffering through an eye poke, headbutt, and injury to his right hand, Boesch endured a long night, which mercifully came to an end with a referee stoppage in the third round. And Yushin Okami beat Belcher by repeatedly taking him to the mat and then basically holding him there for an uninspired unanimous decision victory. Following the event, Dana White announced Michael Bisping would earn the next shot at Anderson Silva's middleweight crown if he can get by Vitor Belfort on January 19th when the UFC returns to Brazil for their first show of 2013.
Much more to come when the best of Inside MMA 2012 returns.
How you guys doing? It's Gilbert Alnino Melendez, wishing everyone at Inside MMA a fantastic holiday and a season's beatings, as they say over there.
What's up, guys? Uriah Faber, the California Kid, wishing you happy holidays. I hope you have a great Christmas, Hanukkah, or whatever else is you celebrate, the big turtle in the sky, or whatever you're worshiping. We love you guys.
The overly politically correct Uriah Faber. You've been a great guest on this show many times. Welcome back.
Melendez also, always a good guest as well.
Right,
happy big turtle in the sky, too.
Best father also, because he always brings food. I did in the
his
past.
dad's great, yeah.
Melendez's father, oh yeah.
Yeah, you get ready to celebrate the new year. We always just take this time to look back on a year, and as is the case many times, life kind of creeps into our plans, and a natural disaster changed the mindset of a lot of people this year, including those in the MMA community, Ron.
Absolutely, Kenny. There were some massive news stories that took place in 2012, and one of those was Hurricane Sandy. Millions of people on the East Coast were affected, including fighters based in New York and New Jersey. Former UFC lightweight champion and Jersey native Frankie Edgar's life was turned upside down by the superstorm.
Many lives lost.
Never seen anything like it.
And thousands left homeless.
This is definitely going to test us. I've lived in Jersey for 31 years, and I've never seen anything like it.
2 months after Hurricane Sandy battered the Mid-Atlantic region, the devastation is still evident. For New Jersey native Frankie Edgar, this storm hit especially hard. Describe the night Hurricane Sandy hit.
Power went out, and then, you know, we go out in the morning, and it's like a tornado came through. My friends who live on the water had 3 feet of water in their house, and that's just one house, and there's probably hundreds and thousands of houses that got hit like that.
Edgar's home and family survived, but others in his community weren't quite so fortunate, especially on the Jersey Shore, a place close to Edgar's heart.
Where we're standing here is where the boardwalk would run.
Just gone.
Just gone. It's heartbreaking. I've been coming here ever since I was a little kid. I take my kids here. I used to joke around and say I used to hone my skills on the boardwalk by, you know, getting in fights and stuff. And now there's no boardwalk.
Edgar's external conflict had him juggling helping the community recover with preparing for a return to the octagon.
I was a little bit further out from the official start of my camp, which was good. I didn't have to really miss too much of important days, but I still was able to train. Definitely, it's good to kind of get your mind off of the craziness that was going on from the hurricane. I probably usually trained twice a day. It definitely brought me down to once a day, but I was also helping volunteer at the local shelters as much as I could.
Frankie was pretty much going to the city to train Henzo's, you know, and trying to get some jiu-jitsu days. So definitely, he wasn't even able to make it outside of Toms River, let alone all the way up to New York City to train jiu-jitsu, you know?
Going toe-to-toe with Mother Nature may prove just as challenging as his fight at UFC 156. Not only is he coming off back-to-back losses for the first time in his career, but he's also dropping down to featherweight to face a champion who hasn't lost in 7 years, Jose Aldo.
You know, I felt those losses were close and controversial. You got to use them as motivation, but I don't want to dwell on them because then you can never move on to the next fight. I'm trying to just, you know, clean slate, new weight class, new opponent. Let's just worry about that. You know, I'm fortunate that I'm able to fight for another title right away because that's obviously my #1 goal.
What did you take away from this whole experience?
Just to know that something can be taken away from you in such a short time is you should appreciate the things you have because you never know what can be taken from you.
What would it mean to you to start the new year with a victory?
Redemption, you know, it's kind of like the clouds will move away and the sun's coming out, you know. That's definitely the way I want to start this year off.
Frankie Edgar and his camp are asking people to help by going to shoresunited.org, and you can there make a donation. You can also buy Restore the Shore merchandise, and guys, 100% of the sales go directly to the relief fund. It was a truly sobering experience being on the Jersey Shore firsthand.
Yeah, and we were talking on the phone to Chris Weidman just after it happened up in the New York area, out on Long Island, and he was, you know, talking about this. Obviously, the pain and suffering people are going through, and they're still going through it, by the way. Right. It's not all cleaned up. It's all not nice if you've been up in that area, so our continued best wishes there. Ron, you've been all over the place covering news for us this year. Is there a story or a couple of stories that really jumped out, people that jumped out at you this year?
Yeah, it seemed like I was at a lot of athletic commission meetings with all the suspensions and guys appealing those suspensions. But I think, Kenny, one of the biggest stories I got when I was in the field was the retirement of Fedor Emelianenko. I had the honor to call his last fight in St. Petersburg, Russia. And in true Fedor form, he beats Pedro Hizo. Could have announced to his fans right there in the ring that he was retiring. Vladimir Putin is in the ring, but he doesn't like the spotlight on himself. So he goes backstage. He thanks the fans for the victory. We're thinking, wow, you know, I thought maybe this was it. He could retire. It wasn't until later in the evening as I'm interviewing him backstage that he announces to Inside MMA, yes, I am in fact retiring. He wants to spend more time with his family. He said, Kenny, that he saw his girls growing up without him, and that was it. And that, to me, was one of the biggest stories in the field, to be a part of that. And I mean, I was shocked. I really was. Not that he was retiring, because everyone anticipated this could be it, but to do it backstage, nonchalantly, to me, and I'm very honored because he did that. But the sport of MMA lost one of the greatest fighters that night.
Yeah, you know, and then we're going to talk more about some of the guys that are not around anymore that have retired. Some of them, thankfully, you know, they kind of reached the point. And Fedor was one of them. For everything he's done, I think he'd reached that point where who else could you really put him up against?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ron, always a pleasure.
Guys.
Happy New Year, brother.
Happy New Year, brother.
We'll see you
next year.
Look at this. Next year, he'll have the red shirt on.
Different tie, though.
Different tie.
Different tie.
We'll be right back.
The best of the best from coast to coast. This is Inside MMA.
Yep. Yeah.
Kind of. Rule. And then I kind of like looking around a dining room in a fancy restaurant thinking, you know, my wife could kick the shit out of anybody in this place.
Unless Boss Rutan showed up for dinner. Welcome back to Inside MMA from Los Angeles. Glad you're with us as we wrap up this year, which, as you said earlier, we're going to talk more about this. Kind of up and down. You thought you were kind of getting a flow And then everybody started getting injuries. Injuries, I think, was probably the biggest story. Suspensions would be maybe the second biggest story out there.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, we started also all the way off, like January 14, I believe was that Ushiro Mowashi Yonagiri is what I called it, that spinning back roundhouse kick.
Yeah.
Terry Adam against Barboza. Barboza did it to Adam. That was cool to kick off the year, so to say.
Yeah.
Literally kick it off, and then everything started. It was like a roller coaster.
Yeah, we had some great moments. You saw the Bazus last week. Benson Henderson, the male fighter of the year, female fighter of the year, Ronda Rousey. Some great knockouts along the way. And one thing that we pride ourselves day one here, since 2007, when we initiated Inside MMA, is the fact that we've shown highlights where you cannot see anywhere else, showing the regional shows, and we've seen many up-and-comers, including guys like, John Jones.
John Jones.
When he was very young in his career before the UFC days. Here's a look back at some of our favorites from this year. Great moments, great fights out there. You may see some of those guys we just saw celebrating. A lot of celebrating.
A lot of celebrating.
They might be on Inside MMA talking about signing a major deal someday down the road.
Some great fights. You know, we like fights. That's mix. You know, we bring people together also. This is what we do with Inside MMA. We cover the world of mixed martial arts around the globe, not solely one organization. So that's a good thing also.
But here's the thing. How much is too much? A lot of fights on TV these days. See a lot of fights on free TV. Of course, you have to pay just a little bit to get Access TV, and we're glad you did. But there is a veteran promoter and manager out there, widely respected, Monty Cox. If you're in the MMA world, of course you know about Mr. Cox. He has been a busy man for decades. He has 2 promotions going on right now. He's had dozens and dozens of fighters. I think he still has something like around 70 in his camp, boss.
Oh, yeah.
You've known Monty for how long?
Oh, yeah, long time. I know since all the way in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been... I met him in Japan in 95, probably 96.
Yeah.
So that's how far he goes back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we've had his fights on here, back when we used to be HDNet, covering a lot of his own shows. We called some of his fights.
Yep.
Well, recently he told Inside MMA that the expansion of the big league of MMA is causing problems for smaller shows like his, and as he sees it, even for the fighters themselves in some ways.
I'm not so sure that the saturation isn't going to hurt us in the long run. There's so much good MMA out there right now that unless you have a connection to somebody fighting, there's really no need to go to the show. Our shows that used to draw 3,000 people, 2,000 people, now we're barely getting 1,000 people. And the really small shows that used to get away with 500, they've just all disappeared. You know, a lot of the sponsors, the UFC has a rule that if you sponsor the UFC, you can't sponsor anybody else. And so I've lost Budweiser, you know, a group that I've had for 10 years. They're now gone. You know, we've also lost a place to put our fighters. As a manager, you know, we're trying to use these small shows to develop guys and get them ready for the UFC. It used to be easy for me to get a guy 5 or 6 fights a year. There were so many shows out there, mine included. And now it's hard to get a guy 5 or 6 fights. You're trying to get him 3. In my opinion, you should have 10 to 12 fights in other shows before you try to make the big show. I'm still a believer that the grassroots shows is the best place for a fighter to get experience. They're fighting other beginners, other guys who are just starting out, and there's really nowhere else to go.
Well, Monty obviously has been around. He's been associated with some of the great names in the sport. Interesting take he has on it. I would only bring this up for those that watch Access TV. You look at the Maximum Fighting Championship and what Mark Pavlich has been able to do in Edmonton.
All the time.
He packs his house. He brings in fighters from all over the place.
Yep.
You know, he has the good, strong local Canadian fighters. Then he brings in guys from all over the place. We've seen some rising stars there. Ryan Jimmo coming out this year to go to the UFC, where he had that big knockout. You know, and then if you watch, we'll go back to then the regional shows that we have as well on the network. Legacy, Resurrection, XFC. Bama's on there, Score, you know. So, I mean, there's a lot out there. I get what he's saying, but people are showing up to these things even though they're not on they're on TV.
Of course they're showing up, but I also say there's a lot of football out there and there's a lot of soccer out there, but those places pack out as well, and it's all over the country, all over the world. As long as you have a good product, people will come. And of course, you know, there's some organizations that have really smart ideas. They let a fighter sell tickets to their friends, you know. Well, if you got to do what you got to do, and if it works, you know. And if a certain place doesn't work, maybe that's the wrong area. Maybe you have to take it out of town, to maybe a connecting town, and do it there. But you got to find a place where it works, and you need a good product. It's all about the product, I always say. People will come if you pull off a great product.
Well, we've even seen the UFC. The granddaddy of them all. They've not always filled up all the seats. Not always got all the big pay-per-views lately, because sometimes there's just only so many great big fighters out there. They're going to have that draw. On a regional level, even less. And look at Strikeforce, 2 cancellations. Who knows what their future lies ahead for them. We do know this. We're going to take a look back at some of the guys who decided to call it quits in the year 2012.
We celebrate the past by taking a look at the future when the best of Inside MMA 2012 returns.
Hi, I'm Randy Couture, wishing everyone a happy holidays and a very safe New Year's.
I'm Shane Carwin, and my family wishes your family happy holidays.
Hey everybody at Inside MMA, have a great holiday season.
Welcome back, best of the year on this special edition of Inside MMA. That Randy Couture is a dapper dresser,
Dapper dresser.
It's always fun when he comes in. Of course, last year, he made big news. He and Chuck Liddell, you know, 2 of the Mount Rushmore pieces of MMA when they called it quits. Number of other big names hung up the gloves this year. We take a look at some of the fighters who have called it a career.
As he's done for the past 15 years, the People's Champion Tito Ortiz left his heart and soul in the octagon in his final UFC fight.
I have no regrets. I went out the way I wanted to go, and that's as a warrior.
What are you going to miss the most about mixed martial arts?
The fan support. That's one thing that I think every athlete enjoys, being recognized for what they've done. They just appreciate for the way that I represented myself, for what I did for the sport. I've always been kind of known as that goodwill ambassador of the mixed martial arts world.
Credit to Stephan Bonner. He's been a tough competitor throughout his career in the UFC. There was speculation this was going to be the last fight for Fedor. What was the feeling going into that night in Russia?
Fedor has hinted at retirement for quite some time. He said that he would make that decision after the Pedro Rizzo fight. Will you fight again?
I got daughters and they're growing without me, and this is very difficult for me. I'm retiring. That's my time. Thank God I'm retiring.
And all good wishes to those guys who have meant so much to the sport. And I would have to say, in all due respect, it was time for most. You know, as Tito said, and God bless Dan Severn. He's been fighting for 100 years, it seems like, all over the place.
But he's still busy, right?
And he's still a busy, active guy, and a great guest he's been on before.
He doesn't hang it up. You know, I saw Fedor all the way when he was in Pride. You know, when I was in 2000, I started Pride fighting championships, being the commentator, and I saw him growing up and became, you know, a superstar. It was insane. Those events, you know, when you have a small event, which is 45,000 people, you know, you go like, okay, that is cool. Watching an event, we were 91,500 people. We had what? That was an outdoor event. It was crazy. Great times.
As we look ahead, one thing I hope we keep in mind is there's a little bit of a hypocrisy out there the UFC will give bonuses for having the most Twitter followers. So naturally, you're going to have to tweet things out there if you're a fighter that gets their interest. Some of it is perceived as trash talking. But I say compliments and congratulations to all of you who have talked your way into championship fights coming up and have talked yourself into big fights because you have played the system well. That is the name of the game. And to be honest, all of you guys are terrific fighters. Not sure if you get a title shot, if you deserve it, but you got it. You're a tough opponent for everyone else out there, and it would be interesting if there is a big upset of John Jones or George St. Pierre. Now, wouldn't it, from the guys that have received some mixed emotions about talking their way into the fight? But bottom line is, boss, I hope, among other things, in 2013 that we get to see a guy named Dan Henderson fight for a championship once again. And the fact that he was passed over after the injury and has kind of been put on the sideline is one of the things that I did not enjoy covering in 2012.
He's not going to get any younger. And he said, you know, we need a school for hard talks. Remember, that was the line we came up with. Yeah. He already has 2 people that want to sign up. So well, it's why not? Shane Carver, Phil Davis. Okay, both of them going to sign up. I don't know what the membership is going to be. You know, you can make some bank there.
Well, it is. You know, you say, hey, I'm going to say something about you. Yeah. And the thing is really interesting, too, about all this is that if you just say, you know what, come on the show and let's talk about it. Or why don't this guy sit down and talk with this? There's this thing, they say, we're calling you out. Everybody's calling you out. You know who most of these people are saying it? It's guys on Twitter that don't want to fight. They don't want to fight. They're not going to fight you. They don't want to fight anybody. But they're doing a lot of talking, and I think kind of getting all the athletes excited, and they're all talking. And I hope there's a lot less talk and a lot more good fighting action in the upcoming year. And everyone realizes they are taking drug tests out there now, so it'd be a little cleaner fighting year.
Bigger penalties on drug testing. I say, you know, if you didn't before tell, my doctor gave me this, don't come later say, oh, yeah, but you know, we found out that was it. No. It's got to happen before. Otherwise, just boom. You're not gone. Second time, you're out. It's not going to be fighting anymore. Over for you. It's got to stop. But this is insane, you know, and people going to die. You know, it's not good for the body as well, and it's unfair. Some people are just monstrous strong, you know, and if you don't do it, that's a big difference. It shouldn't happen. Instant replay and cruiserweight. I always say this, you know, I've said it last year. Those are my wishes. I hope it's going to come this year maybe. But cruiserweight, you know, they already did the featherweight, so I don't know what's going to happen now. We'll see.
You want highlights, you want opinions, you want previews of what's coming up in a big weekend, you keep it here as we move into 2013, and we're doing so at a different day. Actually, we're going back to Fridays. It'll be a different time at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. It all starts on January 11th. So write it down, rest up. We'll return in 2013 with more Inside MMA, and believe me, we'll have a lot more opinions, and I guarantee that some of the controversial figures will be showing up to talk with us all about it.
Oh, that will be really fun.
That's what makes it.
It's going to be a pre-show, so we're going to talk about fights coming up instead of fights that were in the past.
Meanwhile, it's Happy New Year time. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll see you next year. I'm Kenny Rice.
I'm Boss Rutten. Godspeed, everybody. Party on. Buena suerte. Disfrute de la fiesta.